Hi there, this is Pastor Sherman with the First Baptist Church here in Boron, California. I want to welcome you back to our weekly devotional and newsletter. And it's been a couple weeks since we did one of these because it's been really busy around here. Actually, I spent a week with the sixth graders at Westbourne Elementary at Camp Keep, which was a lot of fun. And just grateful for that opportunity to spend some time with my son that way and the sixth graders there at Westbourne Elementary. And so I just want to welcome you back to our newsletter. There's a couple things I want to share with you as we jump in here and get started. Before we actually get into the message, I want to let you know that we're wrapping up our series, I Love My Church, here at First Baptist Church this Sunday. It's the fifth and final part of this series. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't been out here, to come out and to listen to that message. We're really just exploring what it means to love the church, not like you love your favorite restaurant, like a location, but how you love your family. And you can come and listen to that message. And if you missed any of the messages, you can check us out on fbcboron.org, where our website is, and you can click the sermons tab and you can actually listen to the messages there, or you can listen to them on SoundCloud. That would even be just as easy. And I'll include the link in the description here. But as we jump in here, the text that I'm going to share with you is the text that I shared with the graduating class of Desert High School at their baccalaureate this week. And the text is from Romans, and it's in chapter number 1, beginning in verse 16. And the text reads this way: "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith." Now, as I read this text, I opened up and kind of explained to these graduates is that they are actually about to put another label on their lives. As graduates of Desert High School, the same with graduates of Boron High School, or any other high school for that matter, these kids are putting another label on their life: high school graduate. It's something that wasn't there before and now is there, right? And what I try to explain to them is that their lives really are made up of labels. All of their life is defined by some label. That all of these students are somebody's child. That's a label. That they're a son, they're a daughter, they're a niece, a nephew, right? They might even be an uncle already, right? These are labels that are applied to their lives. And a lot of these labels are labels that are permanent. They stick with us, right? They define who we are, like high school graduate. That's always going to be there. Every time they fill out an application, they're a high school graduate, right? But there's some labels that we have in our lives that change, right? Some of the labels are, things like football player, because you are not always going to get to be football players, right? We don't get to play football forever. Some of these labels are going to be like class president. Some of these labels are going to be, chess club enthusiast. I mean, there's all kinds of labels that we have in our lives that also reflect our interests. They kind of identify the things that we're interested in. They're not quite so permanent. And then as they get older, they're going to have labels that are going to be vocational labels. Some of them are going to be called doctors, and some of them are going to be teachers, and some of them are going to be, construction workers, and some will be sergeants in the military, and lots of vocational labels that are a little bit more permanent, that identify who we are. In fact, we oftentimes, this is our most important label for most people, is when people ask us who we are, we give them our name and they say, "What do you do?" And then we tell them who we are in relationship to a label. We don't tell people what we do. We tell them who we are. We say, "I'm a teacher, I'm a pastor, right? I'm a roofer. I'm a floor covering installer. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer." We tell people what we are. We give people our vocational label. And the point I'm trying to make to them is that their whole life is defined by labels. Like me, I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. I'm a pastor, right? I'm also a member of our local school board, right? And I'm the president of Wildcat Youth Football. There are lots of labels that define who I am that are applied to my life. But what I wanted to let them know, and what I try to explain to them, is this. There's one label that you put in your life. There's one label that you apply to your life that should define all other labels. And it should be the most permanent label, but it should be also the most defining label. And that label is the word Christian. Right? That's the label that should define everything that you do. It should define everything in the way that you act. It should define the way that you treat people. As a son, you should be a Christian son. As a daughter, you should be a Christian daughter. As a doctor, you should be a Christian doctor, right? As a football player, you should be a Christian football player. The word Christian should define every other label that you have in your life, because it actually is more foundational to your nature than any of the other labels. Actually, once you become a Christian, once you put your trust in Jesus Christ, once you identify yourself with Him and move to faith in Him, the Bible says that we are remade, renewed, that we were reborn, that the old is gone and the new has come, that we have a new identity, we're a new creation, right? That your label as a Christian is foundational to your life as much as your own DNA is. And so it should define every part of your life, that we should not be ashamed, as Paul says, of the gospel, that we should be willing to proclaim the gospel and share the gospel and the hope that we have with other people because we are Christians and because we are Christian doctors and Christian sergeants and Christian police officers and Christian teachers, and that Christian defines every other part of our life. And it should define us in our relationships. It should define how we treat our friends, because we're not only friends, but we're Christians. It should define how we relate to our parents and our own children. The most important label that you will ever have in your life is the word Christian. And it should define every single part of what you do. And the challenge that I challenge them with, and I'm going to challenge you with as well, is let that label shine. Let that label be the defining thing that defines every other part of your life, whether at work or at school or at home or at the shopping mall or on the freeway when somebody cuts you off. That's one that's hard for me too. The reality is that we should be living boldly for the cause of Christ, that we should not be ashamed of the gospel, because the gospel is the power of God for salvation, and you are called to be Christ ambassadors. And so I want to leave you with that, to think about that, and please know that you are loved, you are prayed for, and we will see you soon. Grace and peace.